It's been a while since my last episode, so let me start by bringing you up to speed. Last time we left off, our car was broken down at a mechanic shop on the outskirts of Mari in eastern Turkmenistan.
Okay, so we've had a constant stream of issues with the radiator and the overflow tank, and now finally we had a hole in the radiator. We saw water spurting out the bottom. So we took it here, they patched everything up, and we thought we were all set, but it still wouldn't start.
It kind of seemed too good to be true, said my brother, who, like me, had started to give up hope that our car was capable of making it another 5,000 miles to the finish line. The mechanic thought he might know what the problem was.
Compressor?
Compressor broken? What's broken?
Compressor?
Engine block.
The engine's blocked.
We didn't really understand what that meant, though. They told us it would take them at least a day to take the engine apart to fully diagnose our issue, but there was no telling how long the repair would take, and we were up against the clock with our visas quickly running out.
Tomorrow, we have to be over the border. Tomorrow midnight.
Yeah.
Tomorrow finish.
Tomorrow
Finish.
Tomorrow 12 o'clock. Evening.
So that was our challenge. When it comes to welcoming foreign tourists, Turkmenistan is close to the bottom of the list. It was hard enough to get visas in the first place, and when we did, they were only good for 5 days. Now, we had to try to convince them to give us more time. Alternately, we could throw in the towel and tow the car all the way to the border to try to get it fixed on the Uzbekistan side, but would the border guards even let us in with a car that wouldn't start? Suddenly, our little road trip had turned into an international bureaucratic dilemma, and the next 24 hours were sure to be interesting as we sorted this one out. I'm Scott Gurian. I'm a longtime public radio and print reporter, and I've created this podcast called Far From Home to document the unexpected adventures and chance encounters I have with interesting people around the world. To start off, I'm telling the story of a massive road trip my brother and I took with our friends, raising money for charity. We drove nearly 11,000 miles.
11,000?
That's right, a quarter of the way around the Earth, from London to Mongolia, through 18 countries, 8 time zones, 5 mountain ranges, and a few deserts, in a ridiculously tiny car.
It's like the Beverly Hillbillies.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's the adventure, isn't it? It's just the thing of pushing yourself to the absolute limit, because I think it's going to take us out of our comfort zone, but in a really good way.
If you're just joining me, I suggest you first go back and listen to all the previous episodes in order to get up to speed and for all of this to make a bit more sense. From language barriers to car trouble, getting horribly lost to paying bribes to shady traffic cops, it's been quite an amazing experience, and over the coming episodes, I'll be bringing all of you along with me for the ride. If you remember the end of the last episode, my brother had left a message with the local American embassy to ask what our options were at this point. A short while later, they called us back.
Hey, so let me make sure I understand right. So you're outside Mari and your car's broken down and it's been towed into town, and your visa expires tomorrow night at midnight?
That is correct, yeah, and basically...
Drew explained that we were considering having Rosie and Jane attach the tow rope again and pull us 7 hours to Bukhara in Uzbekistan.
But we're in, like, Nissan Micras.
It's going to go very slow.
Tiniest little cars, so it's going to be rough, to say the least. And I just don't know if that's going to be possible, because we also don't know what the roads are like.
I've heard that's pretty rough, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever we did, she said the worst scenario would be to show up at the border with expired visas, or we could get hit with hundreds of dollars in fines, so she talked us through an alternative. After we got off the phone with her, my brother relayed the conversation to our friends Jane and Rosie.
So there's an immigration office right in Mari that anybody can get visa extensions completed at.
Oh, brilliant.
She said that from what she's heard, it's not a big deal. She can't obviously make promises because it's not a U.S. office. She said if you need to get a 3-day extension or something like that, that's easy to do.
If this process turned out to be that simple, we all agreed it would be best to stay put and let the mechanics who started working on our car finish the job. Jane chimed in.
We can get an extension on the visa. We're better to do that and get these guys to fix it because we trust them.
Absolutely.
Rather than attempt to get to Bukhara and...
That's my feeling is, we could tow it across the border, but we don't know what kind of shop we're going to end up at.
We don't know what the roads are like between the border and Bukhara. It could be really mountainous.
Someone was saying before it's better to get things fixed here than in Uzbekistan.
Yeah.
It's like easier and cheaper.
It was a Sunday evening and the immigration office was closed, so we decided to leave the car at the mechanic for the night and try to work things out the following morning. We went into town and checked into a fancy-looking hotel, then headed down to the restaurant to grab some dinner. Like the place we stayed in Ashgabat, it seemed suspiciously empty.
This is very strange.
The only other guests we saw were a couple of Romanian contractors who were waiting for some parts to arrive. They said they worked for a company that specialized in building gigantic world record-setting flagpoles. Business was steady in this part of the world, they explained, since dictators were constantly trying to outdo each other to see who could build the biggest, tallest flags. We sat down and my brother tried ordering a drink from the bar, but the waitress said they'd only sell us alcohol if we bought the entire bottle, so we decided to stick with water. Rosie proposed a toast.
Cheers. To our little adventure. Yeah.
To our little adventure.
In the weirdest country in the world.
In the weirdest country in the world, she said.
This is the third dinner that we've had.
Alone.
Yeah, third dinner that we've eaten out.
In a fancy luxury hotel.
Well, we went to Euphoria's ball.
That's true, that other restaurant.
We were the only ones there.
These are
only ones here.
All popular places listed in the guidebooks. Maybe a lot of people just don't come to Turkmenistan. I mean, they don't make it easy to get here.
These are all new. Well, they have this infrastructure, though, how do they sustain?
It's also not a popular time. I mean, it's the middle of the summer. It's very hot now.
We went back and forth, trying as we had done several times before to figure out just what the deal was with Turkmenistan. I tried playing devil's advocate, suggesting that perhaps there were logical explanations for all the strangeness that surrounded us, but it was hard to rationalize how everything seemed just a bit off. We couldn't help but go back and re-examine nearly every experience and interaction we'd had since entering the country, looking for clues. Take that cop I told you about a couple of episodes ago who pulled us over at the empty intersection in Ashgabat while more drivers suddenly appeared on the roads around us.
We think that what he was doing was he had been given instructions to hold us up there so that they could put other people on the streets to make it look like it was a proper city.
Sort of stop you right even.
Or there was another time when some strangers saw we were lost and spent 20 minutes leading us across the city to our destination.
Maybe those nice guys that we met that came down and we said, could you show us where the Nissa Hotel is? And they went out of their way to show us. Maybe they weren't normal people. Maybe they were police type secret people.
Who knows?
So maybe my thought about we're bringing them to you now, Supreme Leader, again, wasn't too far off. See, you shouldn't mock. That's all I can say. I can see why people get obsessed with conspiracy theories. It's such good fun. You kind of think, I can't say anything now that's more outrageous. And then yet you get given some information and you think, well, maybe, who knows? I mean, where is my mashed potato? Why hasn't it been delivered?
The Illuminati. That's just the answer to everything. What did someone say once? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what they said.
Brilliant.
We were half joking, but also half serious. And to tell the truth, after we heard about that other team that found what they thought was a listening device in their hotel room chandelier, our paranoia reached a fever pitch. When my brother and I returned to our hotel room, we started talking in hushed tones, mindful that the walls could have ears. We scoured the room top to bottom, looking for anything that seemed remotely suspicious, and eventually we fixated on a couple of smoke alarms just a few feet apart on the ceiling above our beds. Why did one have a steady red light while the other one didn't? And why did they need 2 smoke alarms anyway? The funny thing about paranoia is that it feeds upon itself, so before you know it, even the most innocuous things start to feel suspicious. Call us crazy, but a few weeks later, we'd meet someone who used to work at the U.S. Embassy in Ashgabat. We told him how freaked out we had been, and based upon his experience of Turkmenistan, he said we were justified in our concerns. As for those smoke alarms we were wondering about, he said we were probably onto something. Before we went to bed, the woman from the embassy called us back. She had never dealt with a situation like ours, so she'd checked in with one of her colleagues to make sure she'd given us proper information, and now she didn't sound so optimistic. It turned out that it was unlikely Turkmenistan would grant us an extension to our visas without a new letter of invitation, a bureaucratic document that could take a week or more to obtain. After speaking with her, I scrambled to see if there was any way our hotel or a local travel agency could sponsor us to get the necessary paperwork faster, but it seemed like we were out of luck. She suggested we just head for the border, which she said would be open all night. Still, we figured we'd give this a shot. So early the next morning, we found ourselves in a government office building with pale-colored walls and a giant smiling portrait of Turkmenistan's president in his military camo uniform staring down at us. My brother and I handed our passports to an immigration officer who made a few phone calls and stared at his computer screen for what seemed like the longest time.
How many days? When the car will work?
Yeah, yesterday it broke down.
When will it work?
When will?
Hopefully in 1 or 2 days.
I think we need probably 2 days.
Yeah. Not long, just very short to get it looked at.
Drew's actually here with me now to help explain what happened next. Hey, Drew.
Hey, how are you?
Thanks for joining me. So what do you remember of what went on that morning in the immigration office?
Well, we really didn't know what to expect. The office itself was sort of just a bureaucratic environment. There were, I want to say, 4 chairs to the right, and to the left was a big counter space. And then I remember if you walked straight ahead, there was another doorway. It almost looked like an interrogation room or something back there. We thought that it would probably take a while for the whole process to happen. So we left you there because you're the one who had the car registered in your name. Went and ran some errands, went back to the hotel, and Rosie, Jane, and I met you back at the office a little while later. But I don't really remember what happened to you there.
Well, after all of you left, he took me upstairs to another room that looked almost identical to the first one, and I sat there waiting for about an hour. And then he took me downstairs again and handed me off to this other guy who had a briefcase and seemed much more intimidating. I think he might have been his boss, and this guy started asking questions about our car.
In the engine, we had problems with the radiator, and then he fixed the radiator.
Where the car?
It's at the radiator shop on...
Basically, he wanted to contact Atama, the owner of the repair shop, to confirm the car was broken. And he asked where the shop was, so I looked at my phone to find the address, and that's when I ran into trouble.
What do you mean, what happened?
Well, I didn't know the actual address of the garage, but I had taken a photo of the sign in front that showed its phone number. So I pulled up that photo on my phone, and before I knew what was happening, this guy grabbed my phone away from me and began swiping through all my other photos.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. It made me feel kind of uncomfortable, but there wasn't really anything I could do because, I was in his country and he's like a law enforcement sort of guy. So I kind of had to let him do what he wanted. And let me tell you why that made me especially nervous. A few months before we left on the rally, when we had that long Skype conversation with Rosie and we planned out our itinerary for this whole trip?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what the route was that we settled on for Turkmenistan?
Yeah, our route was to start in Ashgabat and then drive something like 5 hours north out of the city to the Gate of Hell, and then drive back down south and then east through the country until we exited.
Right. The problem was when we crossed into the country and Jane and I went to fill out our paperwork, we realized that according to the rules of our transit visas, we were actually supposed to enter from one side of the country, drive basically in a straight line, and leave at the other end. So the route we'd planned wasn't technically allowed.
Yeah, now I remember when we actually entered the country, they gave us a map of the route that we were supposed to be going on according to our visa.
Yeah, that's right. It had this highlighted line that kind of clearly indicated the path from which we weren't supposed to stray, so it was kind of hard to plead ignorance. Now, I don't know if you heard the same rumors I heard later on from other teams who said that tourists caught violating the rules could face a $1,000 fine.
I do remember that.
Yeah, but of course, we didn't know at the time, so we decided to take our chances.
So wait, why were you worried about this guy looking through the pictures on the phone?
Well, remember that by this point in our journey, we'd made it all the way up to the door to hell and back without getting caught. But now here I was standing face to face with this guy as he searched through my phone, and I realized that he was looking for photographic evidence of a crime.
Oh no, so he found all the photos that you took at the Gate of Hell?
Well, not exactly. You know how paranoid we'd all been there in Turkmenistan. I was actually afraid that this exact sort of thing could happen sooner or later, so I'd moved most of my pictures into a special hidden folder that no one would find.
That's awesome, so you actually outsmarted him.
Well, partially. But I neglected to hide a handful of photos and videos I had taken of sand dunes and camels that we passed on the way to the door to hell because, they were pretty generic looking and I figured no one would ever recognize where they were. But as I'm there looking over this guy's shoulder and he's studying my pictures closely, I suddenly noticed that my phone had automatically tagged this one picture with its location, which was this little tiny town in the middle of the desert. And he also sees it, and he immediately recognizes the name of the place, and I know I'm screwed.
So what happened then?
Oh, he starts asking, do you know this place? Why did you go there? And I do my best to act confused, pretending that I don't understand his imperfect English. And when that doesn't work, I make up a story about how we supposedly went the wrong way and got lost in the middle of nowhere on our second day in the country, and then camped out in the desert before returning to Ashgabat. And it's pretty clear I'm not convincing him. So he says, show me a map of where you've been. And I say, our map is in the car, which is back in the garage at the other end of town, thinking that might be an easy way out. But then he says, bring your keys and come with me.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lump in my throat at this point. He leads me to his truck parked out back, and then he has his driver take me back to the mechanic. And once we're there, he grills me some more on where we'd been. And I do my best to stick to my story, wondering if I'm causing us more trouble by digging myself deeper into a hole instead of simply fessing up.
Did you show him the map?
Oh, no, I couldn't, because we'd drawn out our route on the map, which would have clearly incriminated us if he saw it. So then I tell him I must have lost it and that maybe it's over in our hotel room, and I'm really hoping he doesn't decide to take me there as well. And I'm also starting to worry at this point, because I know all he has to do is ask to see your phone or Rosie and Jane's phones when we get back, and he'll find plenty of unhidden photos of places we shouldn't have been. So we eventually drive back to the immigration office, and even though my story doesn't really add up, I think I've somehow managed to wear him out by this point, and he actually agrees to extend our visas for a few extra days to allow time for the mechanic to do his work, but he says Rosie and Jane still need to leave right away.
Yeah, and that wouldn't work because we didn't want to be separated in this country.
Right. I tell them they need to stay with us for safety reasons, and because we don't have an easy way to communicate if we get separated, and also because if our car gets fixed but then breaks down again, we'll need their help to give us another tow.
And I think that's when all of us returned from the hotel and met you there again.
Yeah, that's right. At this point, the guy had disappeared into the back room with our passports and was still trying to decide whether to grant Rosie and Jane an extension. And the four of us regroup out front. We're all muttering under our breaths, trying to figure out what to do next. And we're paranoid that maybe he's reviewing the security camera footage from all the checkpoints we drove through, trying to catch us in a lie.
And I know you particularly seemed really stressed out after going through that ordeal.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Not just thinking that we might get caught, but also it was the cumulative discomfort of spending all this time in this crazy surveillance state. I mean, when we first got to Ashgabat, I remember thinking that Turkmenistan was really interesting just because it was so totally weird. But after being there a few days, I wanted to get the hell out of the country as soon as possible. Plus, we'd already been at the immigration office for several hours by this point. This whole process was starting to seem like it was far more trouble than it was worth, and we really needed to be on our way.
So that's when we left.
Yep. Jane was hesitant at first, but eventually I convinced her. So when the guy comes back again, I basically say, never mind, we've got a new plan. We'll figure out a way to cross the border before our visas expire at midnight. And I still remember the moment he finally handed our passports back to us. I smiled, and I said, thank you for your help. You have a beautiful country.
Is that how you really felt?
I plead the fifth. Hey, thanks again for helping me relive this experience.
Of course.
So it was time to turn to Plan B. We checked out of our hotel, returned to the mechanic, and made plans for our escape. We didn't want to risk damaging Rosie and Jane's car by having them pull us such a far distance, especially if it might be mountainous, so we bit the bullet and splurged on a tow truck to transport us the rest of the way. After a quick visit to a shady money changer to pay our driver, we said our goodbyes to Atma Nuri and their assistants.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Jane.
Atma took Jane's hand and gave her a kiss.
Maybe we take a photo with everybody? Photo?
Yes.
No smiles. No smiling. Yeah, this is very sad to see.
And it was sad seeing our beloved vehicle tied down on the back of a flatbed truck for the first time. Drew turned to Atma.
You think it will be okay?
He seemed to shrug his shoulders. As my brother and I sat in the cabin with the driver on an uncomfortably long 6-hour journey, we discussed the situation.
The last 24 hours were spent getting
precisely nothing accomplished between getting the car towed into Mari, getting it initially fixed, and then realizing that we had a much larger issue, going to the immigration office, hoping that we would get our transit visas extended, and unsuccessfully doing so, our car is now on the back of a tow truck en route to the Uzbekistan border, where our lovely travel partners, Rosie and Jane, will once again connect the tow rope from the back of their Nissan Micra to the front of ours and tow us across the border, hopefully with no more challenges than we've already had.
If I were the Uzbek border guards and I saw these crazy foreigners with their broken car being towed across the border, I would not let us in.
Yeah, there's that. I would hope that they would just want to get rid of us. My hope is that nobody wants to fill out extra paperwork, and they just want to let us by and be done with us, even letting us in. But I could very well see them saying, we're not letting a car that doesn't work into our country.
Right, like who the hell are you? Get out of here.
If that happens, I have no idea what we'll do. Who knows?
Along the way, we passed through several police checkpoints where they flagged us to stop. Our driver would get out, walk over, and spend a few minutes chatting with them. He didn't speak any English, so we didn't know exactly what was happening, but after watching the process play out a couple of times, we pretty much figured it out. Like clockwork, he'd take his passport out of his pocket to show his identification and place between its pages a 20 manat bill, which was the equivalent of about $6, to pay the police who were expecting a bribe. And when he returned a few minutes later, his passport would inevitably be a bit lighter. We felt bad, so after seeing this happen a few times, we tried paying him back, but he refused.
No.
Are you sure? That's just part of the cost of doing business, I guess.
As crazy as today and yesterday have been with all the car troubles, this is exactly what we signed up for. You know, you can only anticipate so much, and once you're actually in, it's completely different. But it's great. This is the adventure that we're here for, I think. Let's see how many more bribes we have before the border.
It was late in the day by the time we finally passed through the city of Turkmenabat on the eastern edge of the country. We stopped at a toll booth where they checked our paperwork and then drove for what seemed like another hour on unmarked side roads.
The driver just got lost. He called someone for directions.
Not exactly what we had planned for.
I don't understand. This is a crossing between two countries leading to Bukhara, which is, I think, a decent-sized city in Uzbekistan. Not a single sign indicating we're headed towards the border. Just this awful road with potholes, a bunch of turns that I don't know how there's no way we ever could have found this on our own. This is crazy.
The sun had set by now, and aside from the moon and a soft glow of lights on the horizon, it was completely dark. This looks like a great place for someone to rob you and leave you on the side of the road, my brother muttered. Suddenly, our tow truck's lights shone on something in the distance.
All right, here's a gate. Looks like another checkpoint.
Yeah, there's some military guys in camo. And we've just turned off the engine.
Our driver got out to talk to the soldiers who were blocking the path.
Okay, so we've turned off the cars, we've turned off all the lights, and we are waiting in the darkness.
With a bunch of military guys at a gate in the middle of a desert field. This is awesome.
This is totally awesome.
By chance, there happened to also be another rally team waiting there, a motley crew of Brits in a big white van that said Marley Safari. They were parked on the side of the road ahead of us, blaring some music.
Is the border closed for the night? I sure hope not, because we were told by several people that it was open 24 hours. The guy in Mari at the immigration office, he specifically called them up to check on the time.
Still.
And they told him 24 hours.
Is anything what it seems here?
I don't know, this does not look promising. This does not look promising. I think he's pleading with them to let us through.
After sitting there for several minutes, we got out to ask our driver what was happening. I opened the translation app on my phone.
Is the border closed for the night?
No.
No? Okay, when...
No.
You
can't go.
You can't go, right, but we
can go.
We can go.
Okay.
Okay.
It wasn't clear when the guards would open the gate, though. The guys from Team Marley Safari walked over to chat. They'd set up a camping stove on the side of the road as if they were expecting to be there a while.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Drew, nice to meet you. I'm Philip.
So what seems to be the...
Well, we're going to park here.
And they're opening us for us?
No, not until 9 o'clock in the morning.
Wait, I just asked.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Who told you that? How did
Regards.
Did he speak English?
No, but that's what we gathered.
I just asked him if it was closed for the night, and he said no.
Really?
Hold on.
Drew and I decided to walk over to try to talk to the soldiers ourselves.
Hello.
Does anyone speak any English or no?
Little bit English? No.
No speak English? Ruski? Oh, let me get my translation.
Is border closed?
Let me get the translation now.
9 tomorrow?
9 tomorrow.
We called U.S. Embassy.
No,
and they said 24 hours.
No. Hold on. What do you want me to type?
Let me call them.
Well,
I will make call.
They're not.
I know it's not gonna do anything, but it's worth a try.
They said 24 hours. They have no control over things.
She told me to call if there were any issues.
Okay, call her and see.
I was struck by the irony that with all their restrictions, Turkmen authorities made it difficult for visitors to come to their country in the first place. But now that we were there, they didn't seem to want to let us leave.
Hey, so I had spoken to your associate earlier. And I'm sorry to bother you. She had said that if we had any issues crossing the border tonight to call her. And I just tried, but the call didn't go through. So we are at the border right now in Farab. We can see what looks to be the border off in the distance. It's some bright lights. But there's military here and a gate that's closed, and they're saying it's not open until tomorrow morning at 9. But our visas expire tonight at midnight. We're just like in a dark field next to a river and desert. Do you speak Russian? Would you like to speak to them? All right, hold on one moment.
He walked over to the soldiers.
Sir? Sir? United States Embassy.
Can he speak? Can you speak?
Ruski. Yes.
Hello.
Drew turned back to me.
She said she speaks some Russian. She can make a couple calls and get back to us.
Yeah. Because we did everything everyone told us, and still...
I know.
We're in the middle of nowhere.
I mean,
really.
I feel good that there's another team with us.
Yeah.
But I don't feel good about this.
Well, how can you?
I don't feel...
It's pitch black. The moon came out. It looks like a gas station. What are they saying? What are they doing?
We were interrupted by a sudden hubbub of activity with guys barking orders and people's cell phones going off. As I was trying to figure out what was going on, our driver started unhooking our car from his tow truck. He had transported us to the border, which was all he could do. Now it was getting late, and he had to go all the way back to Mari, so he wanted to hit the road.
Getting our car down off the tow truck.
A few of the guards shined flashlights so we could see what we were doing. Finally, I paid our driver, and we bid farewell.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Safe journey.
Bye-bye.
Yes, we need to turn.
We need to turn. Okay, so which way?
He'd unloaded our car facing the wrong direction, so now we had to put it in neutral and push it to turn it around.
So we're going forward first, and we're making a K-turn? Okay. Stop. Okay. Okay, we're pushing it back. Okay, stop. Okay. Forward. Okay. Oh my gosh. Is that good? Okay. We're attaching the tow rope. It sounds like he's going to let us through.
Don't say that yet.
Well,
I doubt we're getting through.
Well,
Don't even
let's
think
see.
about that. Don't say it.
Oh, no, I'm not saying anything.
Lest I jinx the situation. But then, it happens.
Yep, passports.
Okay, we're giving them our passports. I have no idea what's happening. We're just going with the flow.
They give our passports back to us, we get in our cars, and then, as if by magic, they open the gate and let us through.
It's good, we go?
We're ready.
Slowly, Rosie and Jane begin pulling us across.
Thank you, goodbye.
As we drive past them, I notice that all the guards have gold teeth. What's up with that, I ask, then realize that collecting bribes can be a lucrative business. I'm grateful for the help from our friends in the embassy, so this border crossing didn't end up costing us any more than it should. We were so focused on getting out of Turkmenistan that it's not until after they stamp our passports that we realize that the next border station might already be closed, and we may have to sleep in no man's land until daybreak, but thankfully that doesn't end up being the case. We're still driving in darkness, but we could see the lights of Uzbekistan just up ahead. As always, you could follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and sign up for my newsletter on my website, farfromhomepodcast.org. My friend Katie Sewell interviewed me recently on her podcast called The Bittersweet Life, which is a show for expats, repats, and anyone with a sense of adventure. You could hear her conversation with me and some of her other great guests wherever you get your podcasts or at thebittersweetlife.net. Next time on the show, we bought a Nissan because we figured, hey, it's a Japanese car, everyone will have parts for it. But guess what it turns out everyone drives in Uzbekistan? A Chevrolet. And our car diagnosis ends up being pretty bad, but we refuse to give up.
If there is any way flipping possible of us all getting to Mongolia, we will get to Mongolia.
We want to. We're so determined.
If I thought we could tow you all the way, we will.
I'm thrilled to announce Far From Home was featured recently in The Guardian newspaper's Podcasts of the Week column, which called this show a brilliant listen. Thanks to those of you who wrote in to recommend it, as well as everyone who's left me ratings and reviews in iTunes. And please keep those reviews coming because they really do help. And thanks, as always, to the Public Radio Exchange for podcast hosting and technical support. If you're looking for a great way to discover other new podcasts to keep your ears educated, entertained, and happy, you should check out their free Radio Public app. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for listening.
When we crossed into Uzbekistan from the Turkmen side, and we were talking with the Uzbek guards, we were in Germany, and the guy was like, thumbs up, Germany, and like Iran and this place. And then he looked at Turkmenistan and he was like, crazy people. And it kind of felt validating to feel like, okay, I'm not nuts. Like, the neighbors of Turkmenistan think it's nuts too.